Hello, I'm Joey, and welcome to another Marvelous video. Today we're going to talk about a big group of cyborgs from the world of Marvel Comics. They were mostly seen in the pages of X-Men comics since they were primarily antagonists in their stories. Since X-Men is a group of fantastic superheroes, it is natural that they will be pitted against equally great supervillain groups. From Magneto's The Brotherhood of Mutants to the dangerous trio of the Hellfire Club, there has been no shortage of criminal groups going against Professor Xavier's hand-picked team of mutants. Today's team in focus is called the Reavers. Does it ring a bell? You might be familiar with the name because the group has already made their big screen debut in the 2017 movie Logan. So get your snack and refreshments ready and fasten your seatbelts because now is the time to know about the origin story of the Reavers and each of its members in detail. Let's start. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Origin of the Reavers. In 1988, Chris Claremont and Mark Silvestri co-created the Reavers, who made their debut as a collective in Uncanny X-Men issue 229, but several of them had already appeared in Uncanny X-Men issue 133. The Reavers were founded by members of the Hellfire Knights, the Hellfire Club's own military force. They first appeared when the mutant called Mastermind sought to mentally dominate Jean Grey to gain entry into the Hellfire Club's inner circle. Donald Pierce, the White Bishop of the inner circle of the Hellfire Club with cybernetic limbs and legs, was the first of the future Reavers to face any of the X-Men. Wolverine once separated Pierce's mechanical limb from the rest of his body when he stormed into the club's Manhattan home. Pierce revolted against the rest of the inner circle, which was governed by mutants commanded by Black King, Sebastian Shaw. Months later, Pierce kidnapped and imprisoned Shaw's assistant, Tessa. Pierce, however, was defeated by Professor Charles Xavier and his new squad, the New Mutants. Tessa recovered her freedom, and Pierce was kicked out of the inner circle. Wolverine attacked them with his adamantium claws, severely injuring all three. The inner circle then had the three men cyborgized. When the inner circle assaulted the X-Men's Westchester County headquarters months later, Cole, Mackin, and Reese held Wolverine prisoner, but Wolverine defeated the three men again. Yuriki Oyoma was turned into a cyborg by the other dimensional creature known as Spiral in order to obtain access to the tools to murder Wolverine, since adamantium had been fused to his bones in a procedure taken from her father, Lord Darkwind. She took up the moniker of Lady Deathstrike and then led Cole, Mackin, and Reese in a failed effort to assassinate Wolverine in Manhattan. The three mercenaries and Yuriko Oyoma became the first of the Reavers. Key storylines. In Down Under, the first group of cyborg robbers, known as the Reavers, have been operating out of an Australian base. Their base was a deserted town that was strangely outfitted with advanced computers, a sub-basement, and a tunnel system. The Reavers forced the mutant teleporter Gateway to transport them from Australia to other areas across the world to carry out their brutal thefts. The X-Men defeated and removed the Reavers from their Australian base when Roma informed them about their existence, which they subsequently co-opted for their own purposes. The X-Men annihilated several Reavers and drove most of the remaining Reavers to the Siege Perilous. However, three Reavers, Skullbuster, Bonebreaker, and Pretty Boy, escaped. Enter their leader. The Reavers were later reassembled under Donald Pierce's leadership. Pierce formed a powerful force out of the three survivors of the original Reavers. Lady Deathstrike and the three former Hellfire Club mercenaries turned into cyborgs. The Reavers retook the deserted town when the X-Men, whose members had fallen, were away from their Australian headquarters. When Wolverine returned from a leave of absence in Madripoor to find the X-Men gone, he was captured, tortured, and impaled by the Reavers. Meanwhile, Sila, who had a vision of danger in the ghost town, went to great lengths to escape when the X-Men were teleported back there. She compelled the other X-Men to journey through the Siege Perilous, narrowly evading the approaching Reavers and magically rebirthing them somewhere with no recollection of their actual existence, using telepathic mind control. Wolverine eventually escapes the Reavers with the help of Jubilee. Encountering the Punisher. In Punisher Volume 2, Issue 33, which was published around the same time, three Reavers, Murray Reese, Pretty Boy, and Bonebreaker, are sent to a New York warehouse after Microchip, a Punisher accomplice, inadvertently hacks into their computer system. Microchip stole the blueprints for the Dalek, a war robot, when he broke into the Reavers' computer system. It becomes exceedingly challenging to defeat the Dalek because of its telescopic cannons and multi-directional firing. When they discovered the hack, the gang decided to exact revenge by destroying the Punisher's hideout before going for Microchip and Castle. In order to give Castle a fair chance to defeat the Reavers, Microchip constructed the Punisher's exo armor. However, Punisher and Microchip barely made it out alive, but the Dalek was destroyed. The Muir Island X-Men. The Reavers then launched an assault on Muir Island, believing it to be Wolverine's most likely location. The Muir Island X-Men, an improvised mutant squad, launched a counterattack against them. Skullbuster was rendered useless during the raid by sniper fire from Forge. Despite this setback, the Reavers were successful in eliminating some mutants. Later, Sila Markham, a severely injured pilot, was converted by Donald Pierce into the next Skullbuster. End of the Reavers? A few years later, Trevor Fitzroy, a member of the Upstarts, dispatched Sentinels to kill the Reavers since they posed a threat to mutants, and Pierce was valuable in their deadly game. Only Pierce, Lady Deathstrike, Sila Markham managed to escape the slaughter during the ensuing conflict. It appeared that Pierce only made it as far as the Hellfire Club before he died. Later, Sila Markham appears and teams up with Bloodscream in an attempt to assassinate Wolverine. Bloodscream, on the other hand, betrayed her and killed her by sucking the life out of her. However, the majority of Reavers evade their predicted demise. Reavers 2.0. We should call it Reavers 3.0, but what the hell. Donald Pierce formed a new Reaver gang composed of young anti-mutant people. This included Elixir, who was unaware he was a mutant at the time. A de facto new version of the New Mutants defeated them, and Pierce was handed to the police. Later, the gang breaks Pierce out of jail and attempts to kill Elixir again, but they are thwarted by the remaining core members of the original New Mutant squad. New leader, Lady Deathstrike. The Reavers returned to play an essential role in the Messiah Complex event, led by Lady Deathstrike. According to their outfit style and fighting rhetoric, the newest Reavers were just current purifiers enhanced with cybernetics, rather than traditional squad members. The Reavers, deployed as an elite commando force to eradicate organized mutant resistance, hunt down and fight Cable in Alberta, Canada, before being assaulted by the new X-Force. Wolverine's attack squad defeats Deathstrike and the Reavers in the subsequent combat, but not before murdering the mutant Caliban and gravely wounding Cable. Hunting for Wolverine. Donald Pierce subsequently commands a new gang of Reavers during the Hunt for Wolverine storyline, which includes Star and Shine, who goes by the alias of Starshine together, Pretty Boy, the new Skullbuster, and Bonebreaker. They discover the location where the X-Men had buried Wolverine's metal-encased remains until they were found by the X-Men when Bonebreaker accidentally tripped an alarm. Wolverine's adamantium shell was cracked during the combat, and to the Reavers' amazement, it was empty. The Reavers were finally defeated and taken to Alpha Flight by the X-Men. Only Starshine escaped captivity and informed Lady Deathstrike of their discovery. Reavers Universal Robotics. Donald Pierce and the Reavers are seen to have founded a corporation named Reavers Universal Robotics in Hightown, Madripoor during the Iron Man 2020 event. In the story, we see Albert driving to meet Donald Pierce, but is met by Bonebreaker and the Reavers instead. Pierce arrived just in time to save the lobby from destruction. While giving Albert a tour, Pierce explains that he has been modernizing his operations using a 3D printer. When Pierce says LCD isn't present and that she previously appeared begging for her self-destruct device to be disabled, Albert retaliates, alleging that Pierce doesn't control him or LCD. When Albert subdues the Reavers, Pierce claims that he sold LCD's head to Yakuza Lord Kimura, her legs to the Vladivostok Mafia, and her arms to the Jade Dragon Triad. That brings an end to all their major storylines in the comics world. Now it's time to check out each former and current member's origin story and what they bring to the table. Members of the Reavers. Bonebreaker. Bonebreaker was the head of the first Reaver squad. As I mentioned earlier, they were just a gang of cyborgs that carried out crimes worldwide from their base in Australia. After the X-Men defeated the Reavers, Bonebreaker and his friends narrowly missed being taken through the Siege Perilous. He then sought Lady Deathstrike and Donald Pierce for assistance in reforming the Reavers. They agreed, and Pierce took over as Reaver commander in place of Bonebreaker. Speaking of his abilities, Bonebreaker is a cyborg with bionic implants that give him extraordinary strength, endurance, and reflexes beyond those of an average person. His legs have also been substituted with motorized chassis with tank treads that are armed with anti-aircraft weaponry, missile launchers, and machine guns. His upper body may be separated from the tank chassis if necessary. He could also morph his hands into cannons. Skullbuster. The first Skullbuster was a member of the original Reavers from a ghost town in Australia. Skullbuster was murdered by Forge during a fight on Muir Island after the Reavers clashed with the X-Men. However, Donald Pierce revived him some years later. After the first Skullbuster died, Donald Pierce changed a female pilot named Sila Markham into the new Skullbuster after she was gravely injured in an aircraft crash. We'll be talking about her character soon. The third Skullbuster subsequently appears as a member of the Shadow King's Reaver gang. She engaged with Thunderbird in battle and nearly quickly drained him of his solar plasma energies, until Bishop interfered. Ultimately, the third Skullbuster and the other Reavers were defeated by the X-Men and imprisoned. Skullbuster, like the other Reavers, is a cyborg with bionic implants that boost his strength, stamina, jumping ability, and reflexes beyond those of a regular human. An onboard aiming computer, visual scanners, machine guns, a plasma grenade launcher, a plasma blaster, thermite launchers, and steel wrist claws are among the many bionic implants of Skullbuster. The implants also have the ability to absorb energy from both power sources and assaults. Skullbuster is claimed to be able to kick with the force of a pile driver thanks to his cybernetic legs. Pretty Boy. When Donald Pierce assembled the team of robotic criminals, he took Pretty Boy under his wing. He and other Reavers were slain during an attack in Australia by sentinels from the future dispatched by Trevor Fitzroy. Pretty Boy subsequently made a comeback under Deathstrike's leadership, only to be slain once again, this time at the hands of Logan, but he quickly reappeared, this time battling with Pierce and a few other Reavers to defeat the X-Men and buy his employer some time to grab Wolverine's bones. When Alpha Flight captured the Cyborgs, the operation was deemed a failure. Apart from the usual cybernetic implants and generic superhuman abilities, sharp fingers and bionic extendable limbs are special features of Pretty Boy. His robotic limbs can be telescoped to at least 3 times their natural length. Additionally, he possesses fiber optic filaments that, when combined with his telepathic abilities, might turn any human being into a Reaver. He has the ability to project fiber optic strands from his eyes into the brains of victims to rewire them. Donald Pierce. An eminent industrialist, Donald Pierce initially appeared as an esteemed Inner Circle member of the Hellfire Club, where he held his position as the White Bishop. When they first came in contact with the X-Men, during this fight, he engaged in combat with Colossus, Nightcrawler, and Wolverine. It was revealed that he was a cyborg when Wolverine almost severed his arm. After the Inner Circle of the Hellfire Club was ultimately destroyed, Donald Pierce's whereabouts remained a mystery for several years, till he reappeared with his team of Reavers. Boyd Holbrook, an actor best known for his role in the Netflix series Narcos, plays Donald Pierce, a significant adversary in the movie Logan. The Reavers, a cybernetically modified team that hunts and kills mutants for Xander Rice in the film, are led by Pierce. They provide the force for the evil corporation Transigen, whose objective is to exterminate the whole mutant race. In order to conduct experiments on Laura, a young girl who is actually a Wolverine clone, he and his gang chase her, but Wolverine and Professor X struggle to save her. Pierce is murdered by the mutant offspring Transigen developed at the movie's climax. Speaking of his powers, Donald Pierce is a superhumanly strong cyborg. His ability and reflexes are likewise unimaginably quick. These qualities come from his synthetic body. As long as his head is still intact, he'll probably live even if his body is completely destroyed. Only the head is left of his original human body. However, it is unclear how much of the head is original. He may still possess his actual brain, or he may have uploaded his memories, intellect, and thinking engrams into a cyborg computer brain, which is unknown. During his introduction into Bastion's purifiers, Donald was also infected with the transmode virus, which rendered him obedient to the murderous AI's command code. Although he hasn't demonstrated any Technarch mechamorphing skills, he has, however, demonstrated the capacity to mimic Scott's optic blast strength while dressing as him. Donald Pierce is a genius in robotics, cybernetics, and electronics, in addition to his physical advantages. He has created technology in these areas that are around 2 centuries ahead of what is currently known via traditional research. Lady Deathstrike. Yuriko Oyama. Yuriko Oyama is the daughter of Kinji Oyama, a former Japanese kamikaze pilot who attempted suicide on an American warship and failed, leaving his face hideously damaged. Kinji rose to prominence as a crime boss in Japan, and the owner of Oyama Heavy Industries arranged for Marcy Stryker, the soldier William Stryker's widow, to privately instruct Yuriko and her 2 brothers. Kinji intended to make ceremonial scars on the faces of Yuriko and her brother out of intense guilt for failing his nation. In an effort to produce super soldiers for Japan, he finally assumed the criminal scientific identity of Lord Darkwind and invented the technique that allowed adamantium to be fused with human bone. His notes, however, were taken, and it took him many years to find the method. Yuriko teamed up with Daredevil to release her sweetheart, Hiro, from her father's clutches and exact revenge on her father for her scars and the deaths of her 2 brothers. Daredevil was led to Lord Darkwind's secluded island in quest of Bullseye. When Yuriko assassinated Lord Darkwind, the dedicated Kiro chose to commit seppuku to honor his lord. Disgusted, Yuriko adopted her father's values and vowed to find whoever had dishonored him in order to restore Japan's reputation. She assumed the disguise of a samurai warrior and took up the moniker of Lady Deathstrike. Lady Deathstrike is a cyborg with super speed, agility, and strength. Deathstrike's skeleton has been laced with adamantium, making her skeletal structure nearly impenetrable. It was initially unclear how she survived this procedure, as it is widely assumed that the operation would be lethal to a human without a healing element. It was subsequently revealed that Spiral employed magic to implant the metal into Deathstrike's body. The fingers of Deathstrike have been replaced by 12-inch adamantium claws. She is a highly trained assassin who is also proficient in several Eastern combat arts. Yukio favors stealth and subtlety in her skills, but she is emotionally troubled, which hinders her efficiency. Her most recent visit to Donald Pierce resulted in an update that gave her a cybernetic healing factor akin to Wolverine's, albeit not as effective. Within minutes, the component restores both her robotic and biological portions. However, more severe problems take longer to fix. Deathstrike can communicate with external computer systems, processing data and storing it in her memory centers. She is a highly accomplished martial artist, which specializes in kinjutsu and other classic samurai techniques. She is also a talented naval and aviation pilot. Wade Cole, Angela Macon, and Murray Reese. These three were former mercenaries who worked as troopers for the Hellfire Club's inner circle. Wolverine battled them while his X-Men friends were being kept hostage, leaving them all severely injured. The inner circle transformed the three men into cyborgs. They joined Donald Pierce in his rebellion against the inner circle and became members of the Reavers. They were supposedly slain by Sentinels dispatched by Trevor Fitzroy, but later resurfaced only to be killed again. They subsequently returned after their fellow Reavers got in contact with the One, where they teamed up with the X-Men to save their boss, Donald Pierce. Like every Reaver, they had superhuman abilities and robotic implants. Elixir. Elixir, real name Joshua Foley, is one of the few active and proven Omega-level mutants, and was a student at Xavier Institute. As a member of the Five, he is now a part of the new mutant country of Krakoa. He is noted for his power of biological manipulation, which allows him to restore life and remove it on a whim, and he is capable of extraordinary feats. Josh was always a golden boy, brilliant in sports, popular among his peers, and attractive to ladies. Josh was also the popular one who frequently bullied the misfits and was a member of the mutant-hating gang, the Reavers. Donald Pierce was exhibiting his sword arm at their first encounter and slashed Josh across the hand. Although Josh discarded the event once the wound healed itself. Josh's pal was injured when the Reavers attacked Xavier's students, notably Moonstar's New Mutant Squad. Josh found that he had the capacity to heal at this point. Although Josh first sought to conceal his gift, he finally chose to use it for the betterment when he healed Wallflower after she was attacked by Pierce. While he was hesitant to accept Danny Moonstar's invitation to Xavier's, he finally agreed when both his family and friends abandoned him since he was a mutant. Elixir is an Omega-level mutant that can manipulate the biological structure of any organic thing, including his own body. He must be close to whatever he utilizes his magic on. He is capable of increasing and restoring mutant talents, inflicting severe boils and welts, manipulating the life forces of others, forming tumors, treating the legacy virus, causing death, and clearing the body of narcotics, in addition to healing. Later, once his powers have been greatly extended, he can even cure the Mpox. The Stepford Cuckoos mentally replicated and transmitted the beast's biology, genetics, and anatomy knowledge into Josh's head, allowing him to treat almost any ailment. In theory, he may even be able to change his own genetic code, which might explain why he is classified as an Omega. Elixir has also shown offensive applications of his abilities. Enraged by the mansion's onslaught, Elixir touched William Stryker and reversed his healing skills, causing Stryker to die quickly. This talent has been exhibited subsequently, and he has little control over it. While he has begun to investigate what he can accomplish with his healing skills, he has yet to thoroughly investigate his control over healing reversal, and any use of this talent will almost certainly end in the demise of his target. Sila Markham. Sila Markham began her career as a pilot. One day, she was flying Banshee and Forge on one of their missions as Sila was almost killed when the jet was shot down. Pretty soon, Donald Pierce rebuilt her into one of his Reavers. She became the second Skullbuster after the original one passed away. She stayed with the gang until Trevor Fitzroy killed most of her friends. She survived, but was left in a coma. She reappeared in Japan to search for her old adversary. She even managed to send Wolverine, Sunfire, and Gambit fleeing for safety beyond the clan Yashida stronghold's defenses. defenses. She was, however, no match for Jubilee in Yukio's coordinated attack. Later, Sila teamed forces with Bloodscream to fight Wolverine. They found him by following a long route across frozen mountains, but by the time they arrived, they were exhausted from the journey's physical hardship and their food supplies had run out. Bloodscream fought Wolverine after regaining his strength while Sila was assumed to be dead. She would soon be seen again, along with other Reaver members, on a mission to obtain Wolverine's dead body for a fee, where she accidentally notifies the rest of the X-Men and was taken down by Shadowcat. Sila has received several cybernetic improvements in the areas of strength, agility, reactions, and durability to compete with her opponents on equal footing. She is Pierce's only cybernetic production model, surpassing Lady Deathstrike and the Reavers, who were only prototypes at the time. Sila wears a faceplate with an inbuilt computer for slash trajectory, and her eyes feature built-in HUDs that broadcast range data and target parallax into her cornea. She has night vision, ordinary eyesight, and infrared vision, and can transition between them for maximum effectiveness during battle. She also has audio-oriented locators and a pulse Doppler radar for battling in the dark. Sila also has a speech synthesizer that can change her voice to sound like other individuals, and a wireless modem adept for hacking government systems and communication systems. Klieg and Slocum. Klieg and Slocum are Reaver members who have been modified by the tech organic virus. During the American evacuation, they disguised themselves as humans, along with Donald Pierce. They grabbed possession of one of the Human Council's main airships, murdering many people in the process. Eventually, Weapon X confronted the trio, and both appeared to perish when the aircraft burned in the air. They belong to the Age of Apocalypse, a parallel universe. Deadeye and Mangle. Deadeye and Mangle were also members of the Reavers in the alternate reality of the Age of Apocalypse. In order to stop Weapon X from persuading the mutant teleporter Gateway to help the Human High Council launch their nuclear attack against Apocalypse America, Deadeye and his accomplice, Mangle, were dispatched to Wandagore Mountain. Their attempt to ambush Weapon X failed, and Mangle and Deadeye were both severed in half. Despite this, Deadeye still managed to jury-rig himself to Mangle's corpse and make an effort to take out both Weapon X and Gateway. The Cyborg, however, was unprepared for Carol Danvers' appearance, who attacked him with a grenade and knocked him down a flight of stairs. Both of them were annihilated in the explosion that followed. Starshine. The Reavers reunited two young Japanese women named Star and Shine. Shine appears to have psychic abilities, and Star looks to be able to combine with equipment that she may utilize as her own body. They were recruited in the 5th Reavers team by Donald Pierce to look for Wolverine's body in the comic series titled The Hunt for Wolverine. In the story's climax, the Reavers were ultimately defeated by the X-Men, who then handed them over to Alpha Flight. The only one who managed to escape captivity was Starshine, who informed Lady Deathstrike of their discoveries. Dragoness. Dragoness, or Tamara Kurtz, was a mutant due to her parents' exposure to Hiroshima's radiation. Dragoness and her allies' terrorist operations were frequently resisted by Cable's militant squad, X-Force, as members of the Mutant Liberation Front in various incarnations. Dragoness was shown in the dystopian timeline that I have just mentioned, known as the Age of Apocalypse, but she was considerably different. She was a member of the Reavers working for Apocalypse. In this world, the Reavers are a gang of human traitors augmented by the techno-organic virus. Once infected, it permitted them to combine with any cybernetic, mechanical, or biological component. In this reality, Dragoness was a Reaver member who went by the name of Voltura. It is unknown if she has mutant abilities in this realm, although they were not demonstrated. Voltura was the team's kamikaze fighter. During the battle, she took several risks. One of these risks would prove fatal for her. Weapon X and Carol Danvers had attempted to flee a Reaver attack aboard an aircraft. Voltura would try to stop them, but would be ripped apart by Weapon X. Carol Danvers would later get infected with the virus, and Voltura's components would be grafted onto her. Gateway. Nothing is known about the indigenous Australian, identified only as Gateway, until he was forced into service by the Reavers, who utilized Gateway's teleportation skills to move from one location to another. The Reavers had threatened to demolish a holy site to his people in such a way that it could never be reconstructed, forcing the souls of their forefathers to be imprisoned by demons and wander eternally, lost in the spiritual dreamtime. The Reavers gave the man the name Gateway, as his actual name is presumably known only to himself. Gateway spent almost all his time in the Australian outback, resting on a rock near the Reavers' headquarters. The X-Men pursued the Reavers from Hong Kong to their outback headquarters and destroyed them in combat. Skullbuster, one of the Reavers, promised Gateway that if he used his talents to take them to safety one more time, he would be released from all oaths and duties to the Reavers. Gateway consented, and Skullbuster and two other Reavers fled via a teleportation portal he had built. The X-Men took over the Reavers' headquarters after defeating them, and Gateway began utilizing his teleportation talents freely to move the X-Men from one location to another, with a telepathic X-Men Sila using her mental skills to instruct Gateway where they wished him to take them. As a result, Gateway became an honorary member of the team, but he still remains a mystery even to them. The Reavers, an animated series. X-Men, the animated series. The Reavers appear in the two-part episode Out of the Past of X-Men, the animated series, with Wade Cole, Pretty Boy, Lady Deathstrike, Murray Reese, Skullbuster, and Bonebreaker all making their appearance. The story starts with the Reavers, who are pursuing Leech in a building because the young Morlock stole something from Lady Deathstrike. Leech returns to the Morlock's headquarters and hands over the gadget he stole to Callisto, who wants to use it to unlock some extraterrestrial treasure that would allow her to reclaim her place as Morlock leader. Deathstrike and the Reavers, on the other hand, arrive at the Morlock's base and commence fire. Deathstrike discovers this alien treasure is actually an extraterrestrial starship. She intends to extract her at Retribution by ripping into the hull with her claws, but she is zapped back. The energy from the spaceship manages to reach and strike Professor X, who then employs Cerebro to locate the power source. Meanwhile, Deathstrike claims that her adamantium claws were insufficient and proposes that they use Wolverine to enter the vessel. Meanwhile, Wolverine, Gambit, and Jubilee are playing basketball on the house grounds when Wolverine receives a phone call from Leech, who informs him that a lady named Yuriko will wait for him in the sewers, and the X-Men promptly go out to meet her. Jubilee persuades Gambit to accompany Wolverine. The three make it to the sewers while Wolverine reflects on his relationship with Yuriko in Japan. He had to leave Yuriko since he had been enlisted into Weapon X, thus he had to return to Canada. Back to the present, Wolverine encounters the Reavers and begins attacking them. Deathstrike comes after the battle, and Wolverine identifies her as Yuriko. Wolverine is first alarmed by Deathstrike's claws, but she reveals how she went through a treatment identical to Wolverine's adamantium process, only so she could battle Wolverine. When he wants to know the reason, Deathstrike explains how Wolverine murdered Deathstrike's father, Kinji Oyama. While Jubilee and Gambit remain hidden, the Reavers manage to immobilize Wolverine. Jubilee wishes to assist her teammate, but Gambit stops her, claiming they are outnumbered. After that, Wolverine is taken to the spacecraft and untied, allowing him to assault them. Gambit and Jubilee appear and assist Wolverine. During the battle, Deathstrike becomes entangled in the ship's force field again, which both Professor X and Deathstrike find surprising. Professor X finally realizes the power source is a telepathic message warning others not to open the spacecraft. When Deathstrike is unable to free herself, Wolverine is forced to tear a hole in the ship. A creature emerges from the ship's cavity, showering the group in green light. The Ravagers begin to fire at the light until the Spirit Drinker appears. The drinker saps the Reaver's life essence, except for Deathstrike. Deathstrike and the other X-Men decide to flee, with Gambit staying behind to distract the drinker. However, before the evil alien monster can drain Gambit, Jubilee leaps in front of him, rescuing him while allowing the creature to drain her instead. Wolverine scoops up Jubilee's body, and the group flees the drinker. All of this was observed by Professor X with the help of Cerebro from his residence. Next, we see Beast telling several visitors about the many works of art exhibited at an art museum when Xavier summons him. The professor also summons Cyclops and Jean Grey, who are on a date. Meanwhile, in the sewers, the drinker catches up with the gang, and they understand that they must eliminate the drinker in order to liberate Jubilee's spirit and resurrect her. Gambit attempts to conceal it beneath rubble, but fails. Gambit flees with Jubilee's lifeless corpse, leaving Wolverine and Lady Deathstrike to confront the alien. Deathstrike is eventually drained of her spirit by the drinker. At this point, Professor X, the Beast, Cyclops, and Jean arrive to assist in the struggle against the monster. The drinker escapes the X-Men, and the Professor and Beast examine the vessel. Xavier is shocked and manages to translate the alien language, discovering that the spacecraft was a drinker prison ship that crashed in the sewers. Meanwhile, the X-Men collaborate to force the drinker into the third subway rail, slaying him by electrocution. In the end, consciousness is eventually restored to Deathstrike and Jubilee. Wolverine and the X-Men. The Reavers also appear in the 2009 animated TV show Wolverine and the X-Men in a couple of episodes. This iteration of the gang serves Mojo and includes Ricochet, Murray Reese, Angelo Macon, Wade Cole, and Spiral, among other not-so-popular members. Marvelous verdict. That brings us to the end of this video. Pierce is one of the most dangerous supervillains of the X-Men. Pierce and the Reavers have often appeared to oppose the X-Men, allying with villains such as the future Sentinel Bastion or mutant-killing extremists, the Purifiers. As a result, Pierce has lost most of his initial human appearance throughout many conflicts, becoming more and more mechanical as time passes. They are one group who are mainly after Wolverine's life, and there's been an appearance in the movie Logan, as I mentioned before. Much more can be done with the different character members of the said group. Maybe in the next X-Men movie? We'll just have to wait and see. Who's your favorite Reaver member? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, click the like button and share the video with your friends. I'll see you soon.